Hi, I'm Claire Wilson, and in this presentation I'm going to discuss how I approach the Surfaces and Strategies module. This quote from Liz Well was a catalyst for my project. Mitchell argues that landscape is best used not as a noun but as a verb, to landscape, and acts as a reminder that the landscape results from human action. We are living in unprecedented times due to COVID pandemic and lockdown. I had to adapt how I was working in response to this, but I have also used it as an inspiration and a creative outlet throughout this module. It became a project about how I could represent the landscape and my place in it. Due to the limitations placed on us, I was unable to so freely access my surroundings, so I decided to bring the countryside to me and create my own scapes at home. I did this through the use of lumen prints. These are a form of cameraless photography which I previously experimented with prior to starting my MA. I have always been aware that I wanted to develop this concept and evolve it past my previous work. They fall within Flutter's description of experimental photography as playing against a camera, and I am trying to create a freedom and unpredictability within my work. Lumen prints are solar photograms and a reaction between light, time, the photographic paper and the materials placed on them. My images reference the history of photography. Geoffrey Batcham describes them as something to be looked at, not through, and to be made, not taken. The photograph is not of something, but is something. My resulting images have references to the abstract painters such as Turner and Rothko, and were the most interesting to me for this project. They created distancing of an idea from its object relevance, and through their use I hope to inspire a curiosity within my audience, which may not be achieved with the more socialised lumens. The second stage of my project was to collage some of the lumens onto the digital images I had taken on my trips out as lockdown started to lift. This process was about the interplay between the physical and digital image, and how digital manipulation can alter the experience of time and place. They play with the concept of photography that it is supposed to represent reality. I am starting to mix the boundaries between the mediums and move away from the purity of the process. However, it was quite challenging for me to marry up the images successfully, and I did not feel I could do them justice in the time allowed. This led to the final stage and built on the theme of placing the lumen back into the landscape and the interplay between lumens and the digital image. I printed them off onto material, some up to 6 meters long, and physically placed them back into the landscape as installations. These interventions in the landscape alter both the physical form and visual experience of the site and the images. The landscape ceases to be a static, passive visual backdrop and becomes an active member of the scene. The installations shift the known perspective of a location. My lumens create a dialogue with the landscape. The trees and ferns act as a frame for the material. The images are strong and have a sense of presence, whilst also disrupting the natural setting. They blur the lines of distinction between art, photography, and its natural surroundings. The images feel organic. They were initially created using materials from the land, and it seems fitting to free them back in again. The separate parts of the final image, the lumen, the material, the location, combine to form a new whole, and the actual process of production and installation of the work is a performative act for me. Andy Goldsworthy says of his work, "For me, looking, touching, material, place and form are all inseparable from the resulting work. It is difficult to say where one stops and another begins. Movement, changing light, growth and decay are the lifeblood of nature." My references were artists that engage in land art, such as Christo, Andy Goldsworthy and Richard Long. Their work allows us to consider our complex relationship with the land, that nothing is permanent and all eventually returns to its natural state. The work is ephemeral and almost a ritualistic response to the sites they work in. Land art allows an artist to break free from the constraints and conventions of the traditional art gallery. It allows the viewer to engage, explore and respond to the work differently. It gives the audience agency. It can be touched, walked through, walked around. The viewer defines their own interaction. My final pieces represent a release of the frustrations that I felt during lockdown and allowed me to reconnect physically back with the land and to find a place in it again. The site I chose to photograph my work was a very important space for myself and my family during lockdown. It was used for a place of contemplation and to escape the confines of the home. As I was denied access by the private landowner to hold a pop-up exhibition at the site, I agreed to present my image as a part of Landings 2020. We have had to adapt to the issues of social distancing, so an online exhibition seemed fitting and allowed me to engage with a broad and far-reaching audience. To further layer my work, I produced a Luparello made from my initial abstract lumen prints, which I then covered in my lumen material. This was to further point to the materiality as an image, as a Luparello lies somewhere between a book and an object, and I think it complements the organic and tactile nature of my work. I am hoping to take part in the Dorset Open Arts Week next year, which was rescheduled from this year due to the pandemic. This event is run county-wide, and artists across the county open up their studios to the general public. I plan to hold a pop-up exhibition at home, and this body of work will be part of that and allow me to exhibit work both indoors and also in my garden. Thank you for listening.